Welcome, everybody, and call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lord, is there anybody on Zoom? There are. Okay. Nobody from an absent, so online. First item on the agenda is public comment time. Is there anybody from the public that has any comments about anything going on in the township that they would like to bring up at this time? I can try and limit that to 3 minutes, please. Yes, Mr. Master.
Tom, would that be, if it's regarding what's on the agenda tonight, or do you want us to speak to that during that time frame, or do you want us to speak about that?
We'll take comment on the specific agenda item at the time that we go through. I'll give you an opportunity.
Okay,
to speak
so,
then.
okay.
That's it? Okay, yes.
Hi, Janie Deemer, 324 Zedekar Station Road. I haven't attended a planning committee meeting for many, many months, but I believe one of the last ones I attended, we were talking about Cameron Road when it goes down to the stop light and how the right-hand lane turns, but the left-hand lane goes straight, and I ran into Tim O'Neill at a farm viewer banquet and addressed that problem, and he said that he would be willing to do whatever he could if someone from the planning commission contacted him to
Okay.
try to rectify that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Well,
That'd be good luck with that.
yeah.
We've had PennDOT look at that, they don't think anything wrong.
I told him that, yeah.
Actually, I had somebody follow my mother, that way, and like, look at her, and that she was going the wrong way. And she wasn't. Okay. Next item is consideration of the planning commission meeting minutes from January 4th. Everybody had a chance to review the meeting minutes. Go and take a minute if you want. Any comments on the minutes? All right, take a motion.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as printed up.
Motion or a second? I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And same, also not here.
Minutes are so approved. All right, next item on the agenda, we have written here, final consideration of Champion Center Enterprises LLC land use application to operate business offices at 65 Fisher Road in the C3 zoning district. I'm gonna ask for a clarification. Is this preliminary and final land development? We didn't do preliminary yet, is that right?
I believe so.
Are we preliminary and final? Is that what we're going for today? Preliminary. Is the applicant apply for preliminary and final today?
We requested preliminary and final months ago.
When the original application?
That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
I thought that was the case.
Okay. Yeah, someone here from the applicant like to speak?
We are, thank you, Mr. Steele, members of the panel. My name is Thomas Lonich. I'm the attorney representing the applicant here tonight. I'm a licensed attorney in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, maintain an office here in the city. There are a couple of things preliminarily that I'd like to address. First off, there is no court reporter here, so my understanding, although this meeting is in public, it is not a public hearing. So while the planning commission has at its discretion whether you wish to take comment, that is not a matter of allowing comment which will impact the planning commission's decision. So we don't have the opportunity to cross-examine, we don't have the opportunity to ask any questions. But as I understand from the previous question by Ms. Panassi, we intend to allow comment during the presentation or after the presentation of the request for favorable approval of the recommended land use application. Secondly, while I was here talking and greeting members of the committee, I see that the commission, and in fact, some of the commission members are now reviewing matters that have addressed before Champion Enterprises. There's material that's been placed upon and in front of you. So I'd first like to ask, where did you get that information?
I could say from the chair, this was sitting here when I got here. I'm not sure where it came from.
Well, is there anybody in this room who placed that material on and before the planning commission?
Tom, I can say that I found it online last night, because I went on looking for information regarding Champion Christian Center.
Right, so I understand that
What's, I'm sorry, excuse me, what, they have, so what's the issue with that?
I don't have it. So the planning commission is going to look at material which the applicant hasn't presented, which has not been part of our application. And apparently somebody has provided to you before it. I'm entitled to ask if there's anybody or where that information came from. So Ms. Phillips, did you make copies of that and circulate it to everybody?
No, I did not make copies, but I went online and I just Googled Champion Christian Center. And I found the Legacy Project, and it specifies the property that is at hand here that is in the application. So I
Again,
thought it was
Mr. Steele.
important as part of the planning commission member.
Hold on. Chair's got the thing here, so. Chair says, we're here for land development.
I'd like to know where the
application.
information
Mr.
came from that the planning commission looked at before this meeting, had in front of you during this meeting, but we don't have a copy of it. Now, if there's somebody in this room who provided that to you, they can stand up and say they gave you all this
Listen,
information.
these were all here when we sat. here.
Yes,
I didn't look online. I'm not seeing anything. If you want this, this can be your copy.
well, I'm gonna request a copy of it. I'd just like to know where it came from.
If I'm
Sounds like it's
public-
public, it's already public.
Yes, if it's online, it's public information.
We're gonna move on. It's a land development application. We're gonna talk about the land development application. Mr. Lynch, I understand your question. Let's move on.
Okay, the other thing that I'd like to request is I understand that this is being recorded. There is no court reporter here, so I'm going to request of the township that you maintain a copy of this videotape or whatever mechanism that's for, to preserve this meeting.
I think we have to do that, need to, underneath the open records, Act, we have to. maintain a copy.
But I just don't want to erase it sometime. So, anyway, we're here for a favorable recommendation of land use application. All the information has been submitted to township engineer. We received a copy of the letter from the township engineer, and it's my understanding that all the requirements have been met.
Mr. Lynch, the letter I have before me from the township engineer is dated January 25th, 2024. Is that the letter you're talking
Yes,
about?
yes, sir.
Okay, so you've received the letter, have been able to review the final comments?
Yes,
Okay. Anything else at this point? You'll have another opportunity if you need it.
not at this point. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Scott, can you please review your letter with us?
Sure. We went through a number of reiterations of the plan. We had a number of comments, and at this time, all of the comments that we had submitted have been addressed.
I have one question. I think I've seen, not being an engineer, but I think I understood it. So I know that there was part of the material submitted last year by the applicant noted recommended shift of the driveway access. I think it was also a condition in the conditional use. I believe so, but I'm asking, do the revised plan show the new location?
They do show a new location. It wasn't the original location that was recommended. They had moved it east, I believe, from the original location. But they got a new recommendation for site distance, and they moved it to fulfill that recommendation.
Were you able to review the conditions on the conditional use about the driveway access?
Yes.
Have you seen that? Okay. Is it your opinion that that's new location, this access meets that condition?
I did.
My only question. Does the board have some questions for Scott?
Yeah, I do have some questions, Scott. Now, this geotech report from Gateway Engineers, it's dated March 15th. This is the first time I've seen it. And I do have a question on this, and I do have a question on the plans I looked at here. It's their details of their fill bench, because there's gonna be about 25 feet of fill in certain areas up there.
Correct.
And the way this fill bench was constructed, they didn't show any under drains on it. And that's sort of critical. I mean, so we don't have another North Strabane or now Moon Township or, you know, those, the way they back cut that fill, there should be an under drain in the V here, and there's none shown, and I didn't see anything in the report about it. So I think that needs to be called out in the letter.
Okay.
The other issue is, there's gonna be, I don't know, 1,000, 1,500 feet of sewer line brought up Fisher Road up to the facility, because right now it's on septic and they're tying it in with public sewer. And in their construction details, they don't have anything, I mean, Fisher's a township road, they don't have anything in there about how they're gonna, any kind of trench detail on their sewer lines going basically right up the road. There's no details in here on this KDR or KDH drawings. Trench detail on that sanitary sewer and how they're gonna backfill it, or how much pavement they're gonna put on, or whether they're gonna put a whole overlay over the whole road. There's no mention of that, and I thought it was fairly important since they're going up, you know, 1,500 feet of Fisher Road. It's a township road, and we don't have anything showing how they're supposed to restore the road after the sewer is put in.
Is that a requirement now for the?
Well, I think it's just good practice in, when you have.
My
drawings
question
here.
is this,
This
is
is what
this
it-
a requirement? Because at some point later, when we do go through this, all that will have to be addressed. And if there's any impact upon Fisher Road, the township will require a bond.
Well, it's not the bond, it's going up Fisher Road.
Yes.
How they intend to restore that. I mean, I think
Restore
it
Fisher
should
Road.
be, I mean, I think it should be discussed now rather than
Well,
later.
I mean, everything is given to your engineer.
Well, I made the comment to the engineer, he could amend his comments if he.
I understand that, but isn't that part of the permit application?
I don't know. I don't know if it's part of the permit application. I don't know what they submit to the engineer when they're gonna do this, or if that's ever been discussed yet. All I'm saying is we have no details of any kind. They show every kind of hay bale and straw rack and, you know, cockamamie stuff in here that I know they need for an ENS plan. But I mean, when you have all this all the way up Fisher Road, excavating a big trench up there, and there's nothing saying how they're gonna restore it, you know, I mean, I think that's just something. that
I'm not disagreeing with you. All I'm saying is
Okay.
you provide this information to the township engineer reviews it and says, doesn't raise these issues. And that is, my understanding is that's a time for permit or at another time during the process of what you're asking for. Not necessarily for the request that's before the planning commission and has been before the planning commission for some time.
I think Fred's just looking for some information to satisfy his curiosity on what they're plan on doing and what their intentions are.
That's all.
I
And
don't
again,
disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. But who are you asking that information from? Because you.
he hasn't asked of anybody yet. He just made a comment in the year, Mr. Lynch. We'll get back to
I
you.
just made a
So
comment
just-
to the engineer.
Okay.
It's not to you,
Okay.
you know. But other times that things have been missed and, you know, that's why we look at it.
I agree.
Yeah, there are pending questions for Scott. Or did-
Yeah,
did he
Scott,
answer it?
that's it, Scott. Those were the two items that, you know, I don't know what we have in our actual ordinance on restoration of township roads for utilities. I don't know what that says. But
They are, they have to be met
yeah,
during construction.
yeah. So I think, you know, I just wanted to see what kind of details they had. whatever they did.
on the Gateway Engineers, this letter, like Fred had mentioned, it's from March of 23. They stated in there that a subsurface investigation has not yet been completed for this site. And they were suggesting that supplemental analyses with appropriate parameters to be done to confirm the long-term stability of that. In your letter, Scott, in the engineer's letter, their reply is the slope stability analysis has been provided. My question then is the subsurface investigation, was that completed for the site?
It has not done. The ordinance requests a slope stability analysis, and that's been performed by.
And that is separate than a subsurface investigation?
I think what Paul is getting at is,
Yeah,
did they actually do core borings? Because in that Gateway report, they made some assumptions,
Right,
for the soils and the soil conditions.
right. They did not have the complete information. It's all in their cover letter. And they were, like Fred meant, they were making assumptions. They did not have specific information. So I'm asking if, on the engineer's comments, should they include something that requests something more affirmative of that slope stability?
But I believe it's being requested in the letter itself.
Well, the way I'm reading your letter there, Scott, is that it has been provided, but I'm more questioning, is this sufficient? Is what has been provided sufficient for what is being suggested by the gateway?
I think that's not, but it fulfills the request of the order.
So we're just talking here. So the ordinance requires a slope stability analysis. That's what's done. Their engineers, Gateway Engineers, has suggested that the next step would be confirming the conditions on site. They're giving conditions of what they would expect to see.
So is that
So go ahead.
something we should make as part of our recommendation?
Good. It's something we can talk about for sure. Anything else, Paul? It's not your only chance. The only item on the agenda, we have time.
The projected timeline for your project, what are you looking at? Because the original traffic study that was done that mentions the office development states that, I think you were looking at a June 2024 timeline, assumed development of the office space will be completed and occupied by, so that obviously is not going to happen.
Who you asked the question to, is Mr. Ham or Mr. Lawrence?
Well, I can give you the answer. There hasn't been an approval yet, so any timeline is contingent upon the approval, and that'll be just adjusted at that point.
The traffic study that was done is for the office development that you're proposing. Mr. Lonich, you have brought up about stuff that your applicant is not aware of, but is out there publicly. As a member of the planning commission, I feel I would not be doing my due diligence if I did not inquire about it, because the stuff that's there is specifically for that property, and it provides a blueprint. And the blueprint it's asking and stating states that after receiving $1 million, construction will begin in renovating the 2 existing buildings on the property. These 2 buildings total 35,000 square feet and will house our Sunday services. So
What did you question?
my question is, this seeming to meet a definition that the township has of a church. So the
Mr. Maple, we have
application,
been, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have been through use. The use has been approved. We are here for land use application. We are not going to address any questions or answer any questions concerning the use that has already been decided by the Board of Supervisors.
But
That's
the
not what
town,
we're here for.
Mr. Still, if I could interrupt,
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry. Mr. Lonich, as you're well aware, we had a proceeding involving a conditional use, correct?
I'm well aware of that.
And basically that conditional use limits basically that property as stated during the application procedure for professional or business offices, am I correct?
That's correct.
And basically that any application that's approved in terms of the situation we have today is basically for professional or business offices, correct?
That's correct.
And nothing, I mean, just so we're on the same page, that's just, who's the gentleman beside you, by the way? I'm sorry.
Mr. Miller,
First name?
John.
Okay. All right,
John.
all right. I just want to make, I didn't know that.
That's okay.
So that's, I think, what the issue is going to be, is that anything's being approved, the client needs to know that's for business and professional uses only. Do you understand that?
I completely understand it. And Mr. Maple, you made that clear in part of the record, part of the conditions, all of that, it has all taken place. That's not why we're here. That's not why we've been here the months before, that this continues to be brought up after the supervisors granted the use. And as I said, that night of the conditional use, and I'll say it again, if for some reason this township believes that the use that's taking place at that property does not conform to the township ordinances, there are mechanisms in place for a citation, a notice, a cease and desist, all of that. But every time my client appears before any board in this township, this use is brought back up. It's irrelevant to this matter. I want to get it on the record because you have made that clear.
But I think, Mr. Light, but I think the issue with the board is, again, there is stuff being put out there by your client saying about different things. I think they just want to emphasize to you and your client that they're limited to what the conditional use that was granted in the situation. You understand that?
You have said that over and over. It's been
And
part
there-
of the record. It is completely understood.
And basically, if your client doesn't do that, the ordinance provides for preventive remedies, the enforcement remedies, just so you're aware of that.
I am completely aware of that.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
all right, so, thank you, Mr. Still.
I just want to thank Mr. Maple for emphasizing what my concern is. And again, just so they are aware, the definition, the township's definition of the church is a facility used primarily as a place of worship on a regular basis. And what is being put out there publicly is that it will house our Sunday services.
And again.
So I'm making
Let her
it,
talk, let her talk.
I'm
Let her
making it
talk.
as
I've
part
got-
of the record
She's got the
myself,
floor.
because it creates
She's recognized.
skepticism on our part in making decisions in the best interests for the township and surrounding residents, when information being presented does not, there's conflicting information being out there publicly and money being raised publicly, referring to tithes and offerings that is in direct conflict of what was applied for. So I'm just stating that, so it is all out there on the record.
And we can move on if you want to make comment, Ms. Lynch, you want to hold.
I don't, I've
you-
already, I've made enough
you-
comment that that's been addressed.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Do you have any other comments about the drawings or designs or comments for Scott? Okay. The only comment that I'll make is, like I said, we're reviewing this as a land development application. It's what's in front of us. I think it's fair questions that Paula has raised. But me personally, I'm looking at this for what it is. It's a land development application. I'm looking at the drawings. I'm looking at the engineer's comments on the drawings. I think it is perfectly within our rights to, the planning commission's right to add conditions in the land development, and nothing to do with the use, the things that involve the land development. What Mr. Pizzuto has brought up about an under drain, some questions about the sewer line, and some questions about the gateway recommendations for, I would assume, prior to construction for some on-site testing to confirm the conditions. Those are things I think you want to talk about those. That's perfectly reasonable to talk about if you like, or anything else.
I'm also wondering if an updated traffic study, depending on when it is able to be constructed and so forth, if an updated traffic study will be needed, affect at all the impact fees or anything.
Those comments being said, I take some comments from the public, understanding this is not a public hearing, nobody's under oath here, but we'll listen to public comment at this point if anybody has one. Yes.
Judy Panazzi. One of the things, and Paul was brought up the traffic study. If you read the traffic study, it says it's only for 40 spaces or for 40 cars because the developer would not say how many cars that were going to be there, how many people. So they took the amount of office space in the buildings, took a formula and said, at most, there should only be 40 cars there. There's 280 spaces. Maybe a traffic study for 280 cars needs to be put into place because, again, they chose not to give the people doing the traffic study the full information or any information, and it was based on a guess, but now we have 280 spaces that are going on to that. That was one of my comments. The other thing is there are emails between Brandon, the former manager, and the people that were doing this, and they were told that they are not allowed to have any sort of convention center or anything where you have like big meeting groups or stuff like that, but they have to have 100 acres for that per the, I guess, the ordinance or whatever, you know, the zoning for that. And that was from, I think, an email in December of 2022. I know this isn't relevant because it's just land use, but we have been being told by people since June that their congregation is telling everyone this is going to be a church and they plan on doing much more with it and building other buildings on the property. And again, that's coming from their own congregation. There have always been questions about the Native American aspect over there, and I didn't know if anything's been done or that plays into any of this. I talked to the state and also a college that has done stuff, and they said that area is huge for over in Manifold, that this is a huge, huge Native American area that's been brought up at past meetings, and I don't know if that's been addressed. And then, you know, I was just the same thing that I've seen what Paul had seen. I've seen the videos saying this is going to be a city of God. So we're doing the land development or land usage, but they're saying what they're putting out to the public and what they're saying at the meetings are two different things. Again, calling it a city of God, not office space. And that's like on YouTube videos, that is on the pamphlets that everybody has seen. And also the concern is, and I know this might not affect us, because again, I understand land development versus the approval, but the fact that it's supposed to be a business doing it for a business office, and now we're finding out they're asking for taxes and donations for a nonprofit entity, which are, again, two different things. So Mr. Lonich can argue all he wants that we're saying this, but from when this was all approved months ago, this is a completely different project that we're now all finding out. And I just wanted to make those comments. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? In the public? Okay. Do you want any discussion about conditions at this point, Mr. Lonich, if the applicant has anything else to say now, or if you want to hold off until we have a little discussion for a little bit, come back, or whatever you want.
Well, I think it's a matter of terminology. I think the board can make recommendations for approval, not necessarily place conditions.
I believe, I will say the ordinance
I understand what
allows
you're
us to
saying.
recommend conditions
I mean, I understand.
that based on the land development ordinance itself, not beyond that. But
But the only thing I'd like to add is, this has been going on for months. The engineers have met. This is a moving target every time we come down here before the board. The engineer has indicated that we meet all the requirements. And now there's gonna be, well, let's look at all these other requirements. We're still asking for the recommended approval. If conditions are placed on it, we'll have to deal with those. But we've been here and complied. We've given the information to the engineer.
But you've canceled meetings several times
Oh,
when they were coming in here
You don't want to go there, Mr. Gordon, on why those meetings were canceled and when they were canceled.
the day before.
Let's get off of that.
we're gonna keep.
Anyway,
Go
my
ahead,
only, if there's some information that has to be given, which I've said, I don't know how many times to the manager, the assistant manager, to the engineer, tell us what it is. And that was all accomplished, and the engineer has now said they meet all of this. They meet what is required under the ordinance. And these other matters are being brought up. I've said that for months. Just tell us what it is.
Thank you, Ms. Swan. We're good, Mr. Thank you.
All right.
Any some discussion from the board?
Well, we have
On the
the
application?
condition about what Fred with the.
If you,
sewer.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I brought this up with the sewer is this is the first time I saw any detailed drawings that were worth anything. Okay, we had some cartoons before. It was brought up, how is the place gonna be serviced? How is the sewage, you know, it's not gonna have an on-lot system. So that was the first time I've seen it. I wasn't at the meeting last month. I guess that this was put on hold last month for whatever reason, but that's why I made the comment, and this, the geotech report here, it's the first time I actually looked at it, so I apologize if it's dated March. I haven't seen it until today or when it was dropped off, so, but, so I would like that as a condition that the, you know, the under drains are shown on the fill bench. There's some type of under drains, and there's also a detail of the restoration, the road restoration after the sewer line is put in.
Great, could I add one thing to that about the under drains?
Yeah,
There has to be, I think that there needs to be something with those as far as the routing of those under drains.
oh, yeah.
It shows that this cross section shows that they're in bedrock. And if there is not a positive outflow from that, it's going to cause a lot of problems down the road.
Right,
Well, if we establish that that is to be shown as part of the permit application, does that suffice for this request of the planning commission?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I would assume, you know.
Right.
But it has to be, well, the point is, I've been on this board long enough to know that things get missed after they leave this board and the supervisors and go to the permitting. And I just want to strongly state that that those things have to be done, and that during the review process that of the township and the township engineer, once these plans are done, that those be shown in detail, because I've seen in my time hundreds of fill bench details, and this is one of the poor ones I've ever seen.
I understand your concern, Mr. Costo, and I appreciate that. My intention is that it's not something that had to be provided as part of.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Right, but it will be provided, and as I said, and if the township says this has to be bonded or whatever you need to do, then there'll either be compliance or the permit will not be granted and be shut down.
But with all due respect, what Mr. Kopko is saying, from my own experience, a lot of times these things are forgotten and are left. And what he's trying to say, he's trying to emphasize that these things will need to be addressed down the road. And mere fact, we're granting the conditional use or granting this application today doesn't mean we're also agreeing to allow whatever in the future. You still want to have, your applicants or your clients would have to comply with that information.
I agree.
Correct, Mr. Kopko?
Yes.
I agree.
Thank you. Thank you.
so what we're talking about is, and not specifically yet, but we're talking about a couple of things that you've discussed that you would like to see prior to a building permit approval.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. What are those things? My engineers are talking about.
Fred, you can have, will you start if you want to go? You brought it
Yeah,
up.
I just, you know, the under drains and the fill bench with it shown in cross section in and plan view, so we know where they're outletted. And the trench detail of the sewer and Fisher Road.
That's fine.
So are you indicating that we have to provide that information and come back before the planning?
No.
commission?
No,
We're not.
No, before a building permit.
Yes.
I understand. Any other comments? You have a comment, Paul?
I actually would just, I'd like to defer to Fred and Joe because you're the engineers, but on that subsurface investigation, the only reason I'm bringing this up again is I know not too far down Fisher Road, there's slips in the road, and I don't know if that relates to the same thing, but it is subsurface. And because of those existing in the area,
That's why I'm wondering if that's something that we should recommend, that get completed based on gateways.
Well, I'm not sure what to say about that. I mean, according to the geotech report, they made assumptions and said a subsurface investigation should be done. Gateway was confident enough with their numbers. They don't need a subsurface, they're good with everything that's shown.
That sounded.
And, it's on you. That's it. But I just want to draw it to their attention. If they're comfortable with that report, I mean, what do I have to say about it? They're the experts. I mean, I'm just making a comment that was lacking, and it need to be commented on the record, whether it doesn't have to be done now, but I mean, before actual dirt's moving out there. If they don't want to do subsurface and do drilling out there, and they want to, just basically wing it on the gateway, then it's on you guys.
That's because
It's
there's,
that simple, but I want it on the record, that's all.
they actually, what they state, it's a preliminary evaluation of the road's grading to determine whether the fill embankment will be stable in the long term. It's just a preliminary evaluation.
Well, the fact of the matter here is what Fred said puts us on the record saying we're not saying that this is adequate for the purposes. This is what their engineer is saying, is that it's adequate. We as the people on the planning commission are not accepting that this is adequate. And so that, it's pretty much the way I see it. It's us making certain that the applicant doesn't come back to us and say, well, you approved this. No, we're not approving it. We're saying that we don't believe it's adequate, but your engineer says it is, and you have to live with that.
Okay. Anything else? We'll entertain a motion. If
This-
anyone has one.
This is preliminary. final, correct?
I'm sorry,
This is preliminary and final.
preliminary and final is what they've applied.
Land development.
Preliminary and final land development is what they've applied for.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion for preliminary and final consideration of Champion Center Enterprises for their land use application to operate a business office at 65 Fisher Road in the C3 zoning district. And as per discussions here,
So to clarify, that would be subject to the engineer's
subject
comments,
to engineers' comments.
subject to the recommended condition,
Yeah. the
state your
condition-
under drain condition.
Subject to the comments on the under drain and the fill slope and the fill bench and the roadway detail of the sanitary sewer.
To be provided prior to building permit. approval.
Yes.
Okay. Jordan, can you handle that? You guys got that? We have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second that with the emphasis on operate a business office on Fisher Road.
Understood. We have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
All right, motion carries. Okay. What else we got? All right,
Thank you, Tom.
that would be it. No other business. We are adjourned.
Now you have to make a motion for adjournment. I make that motion.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just so they're aware of it,